Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. Great. Shawn, are you with me? Great. I'm looking and waiting for everybody. I have one listener so far. Let's see how many people we have. We have a number of attendees. That's fantastic. I can see Mary. I can see Arpi. I can see Maria. I can see Armin. I can see a number of people already in the session. And I'm waiting for Shawn to join me today. And once he's here, I will then start the talk. In the meantime, if you are listening and you can hear me, I have set up a poll. Great, Shawn, you're with us now. Cool. Can you hear me, Shawn?
Perfect.
Yeah. Can I hear your voice to see if everybody can hear you as well?
Everybody good? Am I
cool. You're very low.
Okay.
Oh, that's better now?
That's the mic, maybe.
Yeah, cool. You need the mic next to your mouth, so we've got everybody on board.
Excellent.
Great. We have also a chat, everybody. So if there is, thank you, Maria, for your thumbs up. Shawn and myself are going to be taking you through this. Shawn will be focusing on the chat and also joining in to make sure that any questions that come up today are answered and that we don't miss anything else out. One thing I do want to mention, we do have emails in this presentation. I will be handing this over to Arpi to distribute to you all. So if you want to get in contact, do connect with us on LinkedIn and also drop us an email at any time if any of the information here did not answer your question. We'll be more than willing to help where we can. That's great. We got 14 members. I know we have 36 people registered, so here we go. So today we're going to be talking about leading virtual transformation, realizing a fully distributed experience. This, for us, is all about leading in uncertainty. Not only does HR find itself in a situation it has never been in, everyone finds themselves in a situation where they do not know what will be happening next. It creates uncertainty. It creates worry. It creates anxiousness. And one of the things that we've realized in this time is how self-organization, how self-direction, and how self-service has worked. And how can we underpin this experience with the right structures and with the right behaviors to ensure that we continue to work like this? Because none of us know how long COVID is going to be here. And we know in the coming years, things are not going to get less complex. Now, we know that there is a lot of theory in this. And so the next sort of 28 minutes, we're going to try and make this really hands-on. We're going to shoot through a lot of topics, give some very simple examples, but I don't think we can do this without you having your question. You have not having your case. What do you want to work on? And I will talk about this in one more slide. But before we do, I think a quick intro from Shawn would be fantastic here. So Shawn, do you want to go ahead, do a quick intro, and then we can move on?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from this, really from the point of view of culture and strategy and where those two intersect and how that influences transformation and change within organizations, and how do you lead that over time? How do you create the momentum and the ability for teams to continually evolve? And when you look at this from a distributed standpoint or a virtual standpoint, there's a lot of principles that overlap with obviously an analog standpoint. And yeah, just excited to share my experience in relationship to innovation and change and transformation in regards to how that transfers to a digital virtual experience. So
Thank you, Shawn. Fantastic. And myself, I'm Imran. I've been working in the space of leadership and coaching and helping leaders developed the structures that help transformation happen over the last 20, 30 years. And what I've realized is a lot of the science just does not work. So that means, are we using the wrong science, or is there better science we could use? So moving on, what you're going to get in this session. This is what you're going to get, some hands-on tools around what makes transformation a success and how you can use the employee experience to make this transformation happen. And we're going to give you not only our 3 pillars, but also part of those pillars, we're going to give you some hands-on sort of ideas. Now, remember, these are not best practices. These are not good practices. These are emergent practices. They are coming out as we work with our clients currently. So this is also at the same time a learning presentation, and we are open to other people's learnings as well, and do share and do chat with each other and connect with us if you want to share some more. Moving on. Now, before we move on and give any sort of input, I think it's really good to work out how we hold space. Now, I would like you, if you've got some paper or pen, if you're a paper and pen person, if not a paper and pen person, if you're a head person, all I'd like you to is imagine what is HR's role in all this, because transformation happens to everyone everywhere in the organization at the same time. But I think it would be really good to put on the HR head. What is HR's new role going forward? How should HR change its relationship and its interaction with the leaders, the teams, and the individuals in the new normal? And if you can form a question in your head around that, that will be fantastic. And then I want you to hold some ground. And the ground I'd like you to hold on to once you've got your space in HR is the role of complexity in all this. How can we deal with this complexity? And I think it's really important to understand that the way we worked with complexity in the past is not the way we can work with complexity going forward. And then, and I think this is really important, the human experience in all this. What is the role of the human experience in this complexity within your HR space? Good. Hope you've got that. And I'm going to begin now. And what we're going to begin with is something Shawn and me have been looking at over the last sort of 3 years. It's been the employee experience. And employee experience starts for us with the human experience. But before we begin, I just want to tell you the history of the solutions. And in this diagram on the left-hand side, you can see 2 top-down solutions that did provide some answers, but have not really worked. Now, employee engagement was a top-down solution. In its psychological, at a psychological level, engagement is a wonderful emotional connection with what you're doing. But sadly, it's not the one to measure if it is done top down. And the other one, on the left-hand side, in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got work-life balance. This was also a top-down solution. We all talk about it, but it was done through all the programs we created to help people balance their work and life. It also did not work as successfully as we wanted it to. And what we've ultimately realized, the science have shown it, and practical and pragmatic solutions have shown that experience, the human experience, will always be a bottom-up and personal experience. If there's one thing we want you to take away with you, is no experience can be forced on anyone. The minute you force somebody to have an experience, you've lost them. Shawn, anyone on that one? I'm moving on.
Yep. Good.
Jive in if there's anything you want to say.
We'll do. That's great.
Great. Now, one of the things that we keep realizing is people talk a lot about engagement, but engagement for us is always a symptom. If people are already disengaged, why are you measuring it? If people are already disengaged, isn't it too late? If people are already disengaged, what could we have done before? And I think that is where we go wrong. So if you look at all the things on this slide, like low energy, unmanageable workload, feeling stuck, people in burnout, lack of participation, imposter syndrome, a new one popping up because of the creative aspect of business that is growing and growing. People are disengaged. People are worried, people are anxious, people are uncertain. All of these lead to disengagement. All of these reduce engagement. But what, if we diagnose this, creates them, makes them happen, intensifies them? And this is what we want to look at in the next slides to help you understand what creates the human experience. So moving on. Now, these, after many years of looking into this, looking at 1,000 high-performing teams, looking across all types of organizations across the world, we keep coming back to 3 dimensions of employee experience and why these 3 experiences matter. We're going to delve into and give you some information around them. The first one is psychological safety. Why is this important? Well, because it generates speed. As simple as that. Now, on the next slide, we'll go into a bit more detail about how it creates that speed and what you could do straight away as HR to help others in this new normal to create that safety across your virtual teams and your distributed organization. The second thing we have is we realized was that belonging. If people do not feel they belong, then a lot of the symptoms we mentioned on the last slide become apparent. People experience them, and this reduces productivity, it reduces engagement, it reduces everything that makes people feel they are bringing value to the organization, their team, and the customer. And finally, one thing we realized that once you've got safety and belonging space in place, there is one thing that you need. You need the energy to keep going. And how do structures and how do the decisions our leaders and our teams and we take help our people to have that staying power to keep them going? Those are the 3, and we're going to now delve a bit deeper. So here we go. Now, starting with psychological safety, I've just taken a very simple graph from somebody who's written a great book around psychological safety. I find this is the most important thing in the book, in fact, if you look at it. And one thing that we've always realized about psychological safety is when you look at speed, there's ultimately one thing that you need to look at. How fast does information move in the organization? So if information if you want to look at one thing, look at how information is acquired, how it is assessed, and how it is redistributed. Now, what stops that from happening is whether you can speak up or not, if you see something go wrong, if you can point something out, if you feel valued when you say, look, I think we need to do this differently, and if you get shut down, even though you are experienced enough and maybe the best person in the room to answer that question, you are told, we do not care, we are going to go in a different direction. And ultimately, can you say, I do not know, in front of everybody, anywhere in the organization? And if you can do that, then you have a high learning organization. If none of that happens, if people do not feel safe, they do not feel respected. If they don't feel respected, people feel exploited. And then you've lost them again. And the other side of it is if you do not create structures, and now the more distance you have between your people, those structures need to give people the feeling that they have permission to make decisions. And the more you get into understanding how to create that permission, people will not feel they're being parented and not being told what to do and not micromanaged. Now, there is one simple thing you can do here. And one thing we keep realizing, and when we do help leaders and teams, we get the organization to move the information and the decision-making ability closer to where the information is. That's all you need to do, and suddenly safety can be improved. Shawn, anything to add there? Should I keep moving?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think there's a lot of studies done on this as well too, on why it's so important. And I think when you're in a virtual or distributed
microphone, Shawn, your microphone needs to be up by your mouth. That's it. Then it's really good.
And in a virtual
Perfect.
setting, how do you do this within the context of being constantly online? And I think it's just looking at opportunities to find, like Imran said, creating those structures for people to express, on all different kinds of levels and all different kinds of ways. In order just to get the information flowing and people communicating around what it is that they need to be supported or feel that they're able to contribute feel that they're valued. And I think that that's such a huge thing, that it underpins so many different elements of collaboration, of innovation, of creativity, that it is the number one thing that we look at across experientially what people need in order to thrive within transformation, within change programs. Is if you don't have safety, then basically, nothing else works from there. So it's a really critical pillar.
Thank you. Moving on now, belonging. Now, belonging for me is what I always say, the biggest preoccupation of the brain. If there's one thing humans will do on a daily basis, they want to work out where they belong, where they fit in, whether it's amongst their families and friends, in the organization. And this is what humans will do continuously throughout the day, no matter how long they've been in the organization. Belonging is also the reason why inclusion and diversity has not worked in organizations, because they've never underpinned it with belonging. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there's a lovely little sort of cartoon that's been going around on Facebook, on Twitter, where you can see diversity is all about being asked to come to the party or being invited to the party. Inclusion is all about being asked to dance. And belonging is being able to dance how you want to dance. And that is what belonging is about. Now, break that down. What does that mean? Well, it means this. Do your structures actually help people feel they are part of the team, of the unit, of the organization? Number two, if people feel a part of the organization, then they will set high standards. And now the next one is the most important. It's leaders need to create structures that help people believe they can reach those high standards. Now, this is the thing that I think is most important for us, and what Shawn and myself have worked out is that the job of the leaders today in a distributed environment, and even more so that today, is to create the structures of belonging. It's your job. It's their job to make sure that these structures of belonging serve their teams so teams can excel and be productive and get out there. If there's one piece of advice that we keep giving our leaders, is we get them to work on their one-to-ones on a weekly basis. If you've got 14 reports or 5 reports, make sure you do really good one-to-ones. We've been helping a lot of leaders improve their one-to-ones on a weekly basis. I'm currently working with one who's got 14 in the Netherlands, and we've spent the last, I think, 3 weeks working on how to get him to have 14 one-to-ones and not being pulled away by his holding company in the USA, because these 14 one-to-ones with all your reports are the things that are going to drive the direction and the feeling of belonging. Shawn, do you have anything from an innovation point of view we could add here?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay now?
That's much better, Shawn. That is. Issue. Yeah, perfect.
Great. Those two are so intertwined, and I think belonging and safety work so intimately together. And it's really looking at where is our shared intention, or where is our shared direction as a team, as an organization. And as Imran was talking about, how do you get people to feel like they're a part of what it is that you're creating together? And I think that that's so critical to continue those lines of communication, that information flow, and making sure that it's safe. People can express themselves freely without fear of consequence, and they see that shared future, right? And so those two intimately intertwine together, and really you can't almost have one without the other, right? They're so connected and critical. So good.
Thank you. Great. So let's go on to the last dimension of what creates the human experience. And this one for me has the most science in it. And it really does take a lot of time to get round it in your head. I'm only going to share what you can do from an organizational point of view, and I'm not going to go into what human flow, the individual flow, because this is about creating a distributed experience, and the structures must allow a organizational flow to happen. The two things you need to look at in flow are always the intensity of energy and the quality of energy your structures are creating for your teams and your people. Now, I'm going to break this down to very, very simple things. If there's one thing that creates this intensity and quality of energy, it is moments. It's when structures create moments for individuals, for teams, for their leaders, and collectively for the customer, your clients, and for the people you create value for. Now, people then ask us always, how does that look like? How do you create a moment? Well, simply in 3 things. Well, it's about micro interactions. It's about the little things you do, the little quality of interaction that me and Shawn do on a daily basis with our teams, amongst ourselves, and people see it happen. Micro interventions, so little interventions that come in. It could be a small video you do daily, which everybody can watch. And if somebody has been away for a week, they know where to find the last 5 videos they've missed, like a Netflix series, and can watch them and get the feeling that they are still part of this and they can feel energized again. And the final thing, especially when it comes down to inclusion and diversity again, it's about micro sponsorship. Now, this is something leaders really have not looked into, and I think something is coming out here is being able to sponsor your people continuously. Now, for me, this is about small things done really, really, really well. And that is what will create the staying power for any transformation. Moving on. Now we've looked at the pillars. Now we've got to look at what creates the environment and what type of environments are motivating and engaging. And here I'm going to give you 3 pieces of science. And this is something all of us can get better at, no matter how much experience you've got. If there's anything, the more experience you have, the likelihood is you know too much already and you ignore this all the time. And one thing I've always pointed out to people is there's one thing you cannot do. Emotions, never correct emotions. Do not belittle them. Do not rubbish them. One thing we have been seeing when people say, I feel like this, you see somebody in the room say to them, look, I don't think you're feeling like this. You cannot do that. If somebody's reality is a reality, let them have it. What you can do is always talk about behavior and say, well, look, I'm fine in the way how you're experiencing this, but look, this behavior is not serving our customer. So you always improve through a structure that creates the behavior, but never, ever correct the emotion. This is actually quite hard to do, but I think it's something we can all continuously work on, because a distributed workforce will feel this even stronger.
Absolutely.
So it means you have to get.
And I think something really interesting here, having studied culture and the intersection between culture and strategy really for the last 8 to 10 years, is really these behaviors associated with making decisions is where you want to look at, right? So how are we making decisions? What are the behaviors that are helping us to make better collective decisions? And I think that that's where we can hone in and build those structures around collective decision making and increase the quality of those decisions, and looking at what behavior is preventing us from making good decisions and what behavior is helping us make better decisions, like sharing information, like opening up, like, allowing people to express themselves, the safety elements, the belonging elements, and focusing on those pieces, I think, makes massive changes and helps transformation move forward quicker.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shawn. Moving on to the next slide. Now, there is something you can do. Just sit down and think about a moment where you felt that you fitted in, and also think about a moment where you felt you were left out. And then think about what moment strengthens belonging for people, and think about what strengthens the sense of being left out. And I think if you can do this exercise over a coffee, over a Coca-Cola, over a glass of milk, then you'll start understanding what structures do I need to create to be able for those moments to happen. And I think this is it now. You have to integrate these moments into the structures you create. And if you're not doing that, and you're not thinking about that, you're just pushing forward with your goals and your KPIs, you're going to create a lot of collateral damage on the side. And those people generally do not tell you about them. They do not say they are hurt. You generally see they then unplug, they disengage, or in the worst case, they leave your organization without really telling you. And even in the exit interview, they will not point out to you what happened and how the structures made them feel. So do think about this one. This is one of the biggest ones I find for me. And finally, This is actually from good old psychology. Leaders, all the leaders out there, they don't learn this one. I think if we created leadership programs that only focused on creating behaviors that leaders do that create autonomous motivation. It's the way we work as humans at a cellular level. There is no other way we work. This is the only way we work. Controlled motivation will not help anybody. People will do this because you have talked to them and nagged them into the ground, and therefore they behave, but then don't trust you, they're not attached to you, and they don't really care about you. If you can, as HR, can start getting people or leadership programs or team development programs to just focus on how do you create structures of autonomous motivation, then long-term change will happen. We've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to speed through. We're almost finished, really. I just wanted to share, we've been speaking to leaders. We've been asking lots of leaders what keeps them up at night. I put this slide in here, and you can see some of the stuff that keeps them awake at night. There is one COO in here who gets the feeling that the good side of the organization is that she's not actually helping them, but focusing too much on the bad side of the organization. We have somebody else who believes that everybody in the organization is just serving the hierarchy. Everybody behaves and just serves the hierarchy and does not serve the product and the client. And this leader says, how do I create a sense of belonging around the client and the product which serves the client? Because then we will be a more agile organization. Everyone we're speaking to in these COVID times, it all comes down to these 3 dimensions, and we are helping them build the structures to enhance these experiences. I'm going to move on. Now, to help you, because we thought we'd give you something so you can start actually surfacing the data you need. Go out to your teams, take these 4 questions with them. Don't force them to answer the questions. Ask them to choose a question out of these 4 and get them to talk about what is currently making them nervous. The question that will give you the most and the best data will be, what are you thinking and not saying? Because that is the data on which you know that you'll be able to build better structure so a distributed experience can happen. Okay? This is all really hands-on stuff. Just go and do this. Take a screenshot of this now if you're looking at this, and go and do it tomorrow. You don't need us there. You can do this. Most of you can do this. Everybody can do this, in fact. Now, if there's something we want to give you, this is it. On the right-hand side, a very simple diagram. For the teams, it's the team leads who have to create the safety to get the speed going. So it's a bottom-up process. The leaders have to create belonging, to create clarity and direction. And then, this could be HR's role, this could be an interesting one, to get the structures in place so people feel they are in flow and are creating value, so we get staying power and can keep going and moving. And finally, to sum it up in one beautiful slide, in 2 minutes to go, I want to stop in about 30 seconds so Shawn can do a nice closing piece, this is it. Surface the data. Once you've surfaced them, find out the structure that will serve those experiences, and then create, and we're hoping then allow the micro moments to happen so we can then keep intensifying it in this little cycle. Act fast, listen to feedback, get it fast, because that's what we focus on. We focus on getting feedback fast. And finally, oh no, sorry, Shawn, I think that's it. Would you like to have some closing words, because we're already into the Q&A?
Yeah. I think, just to reiterate some of those things, I know those last few slides went a little quick, and really, those critical pillars of safety and belonging help to reinforce basically making people feel included and allowing them to feel a part of teams. And what we get and what we see often is where you lose people over time is they're not feeling that they're being valued and contributing to what it is that's being created. And like Imran said, how do we build and create, whether it's in a virtual setting or an analog setting, those micro interactions, those elements, those structures that allow information to flow more often, more seamlessly across the organization horizontally. Yeah. And I think that's one of the critical elements of where can you start experimenting and starting to build those
connections and interactions, and increase the quality of those interactions, really is what you're looking at. And that then builds experience, right? The better quality interactions that I'm having within an organization, the higher the quality of the experience that I'll be able to have as a human being within that organization, right? So if people aren't listening to me and I'm not able to express and being shut down constantly, then, you know, my quality of interaction, my sense of experience is going to continue to diminish, and then eventually I'll leave. So that's it. And I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up and field some questions if you guys have some. We'd love to hear from you if you have questions.
Exactly. Thanks, Shawn. That's it. So I'm on chat now, and we are waiting for some questions now. Hopefully, if somebody can type away. I know if a question does come up, I'm going to wait around 20 seconds because I know there is a delay in the line for some people joining us today. Let's see. We've got 50 members, I can see.
Is there?
Nope.
Yeah, right. Good. Yeah, and I think, you know, I think it's a lot of information to take in as well too. So we're happy to sit down as well too and go over this again with anybody who wants it in more detail and at a slower pace. So just also reach out to us. I wrote our emails into the chat as well too.
Yeah,
you can find us on LinkedIn.
Yeah. What I might do is go back and, while we wait for questions, talk about the leaders that we've been speaking to. The other one, another leader who was head of change and performance in a large insurance company. We asked him what keeps him up at night. And for him, it was very, 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 a very strong feeling of like, no matter who is part of this transformation and where they are in the building or where they are in the environment, because they are at home, no matter where they are, whether they're informed or not, they feel a strong sense of clarity and where we're heading, and know that everything's going to be okay. And he said that is the thing that keeps him awake.
Yeah, and I think another thing to distinguish as well too, when we talk about speed and we talk about direction, we're not. I think we confuse and conflate speed and direction from individual versus collective. And when we're looking at this element of teams and performing organizations or learning organizations and building these engagement or these intrinsic motivators or these self-motivators, it's really, really important to isolate those two things, because me as an individual can learn and go very quickly. But if I'm leaving everybody behind in a wake of confusion, then it's completely useless, right? So it's how are we moving together collectively? And I think that's this, what's the collective speed of the organization? And I think we conflate those two things quite a bit within organizations. And that's a really, really critical piece of going back to the structures that we're talking about. How do you build those communication channels and those quality of interaction to make sure that we're all aligned, we're all clear, we all understand, we all know what the collective next step looks like as an organization or as a team or whatever that smallest performing unit needs to know, right? And having that clarity of message across the board, right? So the larger and more complex it gets, the slower that you actually need to go for everybody to move faster, right? So I know it's a bit counterintuitive, but that's what we mean when you hear, you know, slowing down to speed up. It's an individual slowing down for a collective increase in speed, right? Yeah.
What do you think about? There was this guy from Holland, Shawn, who his biggest worry, he just actually took on the job just before COVID began, 3 months before COVID hit us in March. So he's about 6-7 months into the role of COO, and he's going to become a CEO. And then he said his biggest challenge is how to deal with talent not willing to make change. What is your view on that? We got Lilith. Thank you for that question. So answer that, and I'll read the question that's coming up, and we'll see if we can deal with that as well. I just wanted to hear your feedback also about the work from home model in terms of leadership, motivation, and engagement modeling. Oh, wow, that's a really good one. What do you think of that one, Shawn, from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, the work from home model, obviously, it's been forced on us here by COVID. And I think, we alluded to it a bit in the talk. And how do we increase the quality of interactions when we do have those interactions, whether they're online like this? They have to be much more clear, much more directed. I mean, people can't sit around and, it's exhausting to be online all day. And so how do we get those one-on-ones really succinct and really high quality? Yeah. And I think that if you go to that question set that you have there, Imran, around safety, that slide that shows the different questions, what if we all started our one-on-ones with with this set of questions? And how do we, get that information surfaced as quickly as possible to deal with what we need to deal with? And we'll start hearing the patterns across the organization if we're doing it really honestly. Yeah, if we're doing it really from a place of genuine interest. Exactly, this one. Yeah. And that's where we can start to build that and work on building that cohesion and the quality of engagements and interactions, even in a virtual setting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Shawn. And one of the things I've been helping a number of team leads and leaders do in organization is about creating the energy. One thing we've realized is the voice has a big impact. How you then, if you've ever been trained to work online, one of the things which is like, what I try to do is like, how can you as a leader become that sort of Netflix sort of experience? It sounds funny, but you got to start thinking differently when you've got the home model. People are sitting at home and it's not that they want to be entertained. To reach them, you can't go the normal way anymore. You got to go a different way. And I think there is something that we need to explore, what really creates that energy over digital waves. It's the voice you use, the speed you speak at. It's also the way you talk. Are you continuously shutting everybody down and it's monotone, your voice? Are you updating people continuously? And I think this is one of the most important things. And I think, Shawn, you alluded to it perfectly. If you got these 4 questions and you get data, how quick do you act on it? How do you then, out of that, get the data that helps you to anticipate the future, generate new ideas, and then deploy them ASAP? And most people think it's going to be a lot of work. No, it's not. In fact, very often it's reducing certain things and doing less of things. So other experiences become more intense, Lilith. So that's what I think. Yeah, that's what keeps coming up again and again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is difficult. I mean, it's funny because, I was talking to somebody about this not that long ago. I'm having my experience and my professional experience was in the Silicon Valley, and I was working with a company called Cisco Systems back in 2002, 2003, 2004. And they introduced technology called telepresence, right? So Cisco Systems was doing remote meetings, like you're in person like this, very much telecommuting. Most Fridays, nobody was in the office. And so, the idea of distributed or remote work has been going on a long time, right? So I think it's just been forced on organizations and countries and teams and people who are just getting to that game, and it's kind of exacerbated that. But there's a lot of people who've been doing this for a long time. So, there's models out there that we can look to help, make it not so difficult, and also the technology as well too. Getting used to that and ramping up. So there's some learnings there that need to happen, but it's been going on a while. So please, while it is difficult, there are people out there who have done it for a while, and there are people who can help. So
yeah, like one of the things which I realize is as well is that, like, once COVID began, a lot of people who were in organizations and were complaining about the way we're structured, the way we work, and never happy. They would be great, productive workers. They would produce great work and their work would be valued, but they will continuously complain about how everything is structured and there is a better way of doing this, but nothing ever moved. Now, exactly, this is what happened when COVID happened and people went home. They took these structures home and created the same structures at home.
Totally.
And they did not change these structures in the way they work at home, even though they had little children running around or teenagers running around. Households where parents have got terrible relationship with their teenage children found it very, very difficult because you spent more time than you thought with them, and all the dysfunctionalities of the family were coming out. And parents who just got small children who need attention continuously were trying to take organizational structures and force them into the home. And I think one of the things you got to understand is it's about what I call it's got to be native to your life. You've got to speak to your team. You've got to speak to your organization and say, how do I fit this into the way my life works so it's the most productive and motivates the best way? Structures need to change. And when they do, I think the biggest surprise from this organization is that when families have worked it out, they were more productive at home than at work. It does not mean now that everybody wants to stay at home either.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. I mean, we go back and forth on this sometimes, Imran. We talk, leadership looks like parenting, right? In some ways, and it's not, you're not able or capable of, firing your kids sometimes, but
that'd be great.
The behavior and how you approach a parenting situation is very similar to how you would approach, any kind of workplace leadership kind of situation as well too. So. They're very, very intertwined and linked together, actually, that way. And those elements of intrinsic motivation, I think, are really, really critical. Like you said, Imran, when we took people out of the home, we just exacerbated the bad elements of what was happening already in the organization. And I think a lot of leadership then got paranoid or a little bit freaked out because they're like, well, we actually haven't built a lot of belonging, and we actually don't know, and we don't feel that these people know what we're doing and why we're doing it and where we're going and how they fit in. Had they been building those structures over time, sending people home to go work could be a blessing for any P&L, actually, right? Because you reduce, office space, you got, a lot of benefits there. People can, pursue other activities, which can promote more energy and more, engagement. And, so there's a lot of also benefits there, but we've just mismanaged it for so long because of the distrust that we've created between the employer-employee relationship out of the beginning, right? And I think that that's something that we've completely, gone astray on, and something that we talk about a lot at our organization is how do we, eliminate this hierarchical understanding of this bizarre power relationship that we have between leadership and employee, and create these autonomous motivating, intrinsic motivating structures that allow people to feel that they can express, that they feel that they're a part of the organization, and not just that, but it can help shape it, right? To help contribute to it, to help build it. And this is where we need to go as organizations, and especially as we go remote and distributed, how do we be more laissez-faire as leadership and trust that we've built the right structures to allow people to engage at a really high level.
Yeah,
I don't think we've done that. And so that's why it's kind of freaked us out a bit.
It has, I think. And that's why, coming back to that question, Shawn, because it is also that question, because, in the past, the whole idea of how to deal with the challenge of talent not willing to make change.
Yeah.
And what is your view on that one? Because I don't think there's any, like, in this current context, there is no right answer or wrong answer, but it's a discussion that we need to have. In the past, we could fire them, we could train them, we could do lots of things. But currently, there are people who are just very, very nervous. Maybe because they have the whole context makes them very, very nervous. They're not to blame. Nobody's to blame here. It's just what's happened. And if you're going through a transformation or change, how do you see that one? How would you work with somebody? If we had somebody in our team, for example, who, great talent, but struggling to move with the collective direction of the organization.
Yeah, I think, what we do, quite well, I think, as an organization, is that we make sure that we are checking in and really listening to people. And I think that we do that in a way that probably goes beyond a lot of organizations, just because it's probably one of our pillars of, safety and belonging. And I think a lot of that's just being heard, right? And understanding what the underlying needs are of people, right? Underlying needs of, or the unexpressed needs, or and sometimes people just, sometimes like children, their inability to express particular needs, but reading in and asking questions and listening in a way that you can excavate what those perceived needs are. And usually there's a good chance probably that they fall around those two first pillars that we talked about, safety and belonging, right? So a sense of, I'm not able to express, I'm not feeling heard, I'm not feeling valued, or I don't understand how I'm a part of this future. I don't understand what my role is in relationship to where we're headed. I'm not sure where we're headed. So asking for this unmet need of clarity, right? Of this unmet need of what's being asked of me right now with all of this uncertainty. But again, it goes back to those, those structures that we've built as organizations. Have we built intrinsic structures that allow people to contribute, or have we been more top down, controlling and, making people micromanaging, and now we're getting, and my hunch is that most organizations have been built from that kind of more top down micromanaging element. And now when people leave and go home and we're not able to have that foresight or that oversight constantly of what they're doing and how they're doing it, then we get anxious, right? We get nervous, we get, what are they up to kind of thing. And as a talent person, if I've been constantly managed as a talent, then I'm like, well, I don't have this anymore. That my boss isn't, coming to my desk every 10 minutes to tell me what to do. So what do I do? So it works both ways actually, right? And not usually to the benefit of either or of the individuals, right? So
I've heard this term like over the last couple of months, like listen with your whole body.
Yeah.
Like online, it's like, so you've always had this thing in communication training where you are told to listen actively, or your deep listening is another one we keep hearing, but nobody really does it. But I like this whole idea is that, is your body listening to somebody? Do you feel like something happening inside your body when you're listening to somebody online? And if it's not, that means you're not listening good enough and not well enough. Yeah. So I like this whole idea of like, if you want to measure yourself up against something in your listening, then listen with your whole body. And I think that's where you might actually feel the need rather than actually hear the need. Because you're listening so well that you say, oh God, I think I know what needs to happen here. Or I think I get you, I hear you. And I think that what intensified this also was this Black Lives Matter movement, which got people to understand, am I gaslighting somebody else's emotions? Am I belittling somebody else's reality and how they see the current situation they're in? So I think behind that, then you find the need, then it works. So listening with the whole body is something that's come up a lot.
Yeah, that somatic experience. Yeah, what are we interpreting? Where are we feeling it within the context of our entire being? Yeah, and how and we'll see patterns over. When if you've got 10, 12 people that are reporting to you, and you're doing really deep listening, you'll start to hear patterns across those individuals, and it should allude to, or should give rise to, what needs to happen next, right? And if you're really listening as a leader, it'll be very intuitive to you. It'll be very obvious. And I think that's one thing that we do as an organization, Imran, that we do listen to each other in that way. And for us, I think the next step is so obvious because we're all listening kind of at that level. It's like, okay, we need to focus here, and we need to do this, and we need to build this structure in order for these other people to feel safe and understood, and whatever they need, right? And it's just that repeated, like you have on that last slide. How do we surface the data? How do we listen to that data and make sense of that data? And then how do we act on it, right? And we're just constantly doing that within the context of safety and belonging and flow, right? And we're building that loop of learning within this context. And when we have that context set, that loop of learning almost becomes obvious, right? It becomes kind of the emergent thing that we do. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that I've learned in the innovation space, and working with, whether it be Chrysler, whether it be Carhartt, whether it be Intel, whether it be at the executive level or the project management level, the context in which we're building the strategy is so much more important than the strategy itself. And this is also something very, very familiar to intrapreneurs or entrepreneurs, if there are any on the talk or call, is as long as we're learning, it's fine, right? Whatever, if we have a learning loop, it's fine. And now we look at what's the quality of that learning, and how are we putting people in a position or a space or an environment where they can fully contribute their entire value. And I think that that's where we're headed as organizations. Yeah. An HR role, I think for HR, you know, how do you build those help to build those contexts and put people in positions where they can really thrive. Yeah. And for us, it's really about looking at that initial space. Yeah. And Imran talked about holding space, and the space that we're holding is one of safety and belonging, and making sure that people can feel valued and heard and belong to a space. Yeah. And as soon as they're not, or if there's an individual's behavior that's not allowing that, then we call it out, right? Hey, your behavior is not allowing us to make better decisions here, to include people, to allow talent to flourish in these situations. And I think that that's something that we're, you know, we just keep seeing over and over again, and it's kind of getting tiring, actually.
Yeah, that goes on to another topic. In fact, it's like, you know, because one of the people I spoke to about what keeps them up at night is a great leader. She's an Austrian person who's worked around the world, and currently she's working in an organization where she's got to bring two cultures together. What is your view, like, from an innovation point of view, about like when you've had to bring two different cultures together?
Well, this is basically the context of innovation, right? You have one that's very explorative, that's very curious, it's very creative, that's very, you know, interested in looking and observing and understanding, and then there's one of execution, right? And just let's get things done. So even within organizations, you have multiple microcultures, right? In a particular way. And how are you intermingling them and building them and looking at them in ways that allow them to coexist? Yeah. And I think that you know, it goes back to those elements of, you know, what structures do we have in place to increase the quality of interaction between these different entities, yeah, these different cultures, without making them wrong. And I think having this systemic background, or this systems way of thinking about it, is we can hold the tension of both of those spaces. Yeah, we can hold the tension of, we need to be exploratory and creative and go listen, and we need to execute and get things done and you know, and focus, right? So they both need to coexist, and not making them right or wrong, but understanding the context in which one we need one over the other, right? And I think that those spaces of safety and allowing both to exist, those spaces of a belonging, so people understand their role in the existing of both of those, right? And even within us, we have both of those, right? At certain times, I just want to be still and listen and be quiet, and there's other times it's like, no, I got to execute and focus and get things done.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great. I think, oh wow, we've got Jacob saying hello. We've got about 3-4 minutes left. Jacob, if you've got a question, let us know, because we've also got to wrap up here now slowly and let you guys get back to the conference. If you are not able to ask the question here.
Oh, there was one from Grace.
Was there? Did I miss something?
Yeah, if you go to the Q&A, how do you introduce the micro moment to employees who are not so positive with change and just want to do the usual? Okay. We'll answer
great.
that.
That's a great one. Yeah. We got a few minutes there. I think 1:15. What would you like to start? I think there's a number of ways you can do this. One of the things you've got to move away from is introducing things, announcing things. I think that's one of the number one thing that has made change one of the most unsuccessful project management processes in organizations over the last 20 years. You don't introduce micro moments. You don't. It's nothing like that. It's affirmative action. So what happens is, let's see it like this. There's suddenly a surprise. You create a structure, you create a little film studio at home, you make a little video, you use something like loop.co as your video platform, which is a VPN for videos, and you start creating a series. Every Monday morning, there's a video available for all your team. And in this, you share a small moment, or you introduce somebody of the organization they don't know over 3 minutes. So Grace, don't think about it as introducing micro moments. See it as, look at your own family. What actually makes if you've got nieces, nephews, children's, partners, anybody, look at what makes that little thing, that special moment. And very often you realize it was a surprise, or it was something planned, but they did not know. And then over time, it became a ritual. But what it does is the feeling it integrates into the structures of who you are as a person, as a family, so you feel complete. And I think that is what it is. So do correct me if I'm wrong here, Grace. I would just say get rid of, just get up tomorrow morning and try something, bring something in and see what micro moment works. Another thing we've tried is we've done gin evenings on Zoom. We had all sorts of things happen. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm going to take this from a little bit different direction, Grace, and I'll look at it within any change process. You're going to have detractors. Yeah, you're going to have people who don't want to comply with transformation or change. Yeah, you're going to always have those within organizations.
2 minutes, Sean. Then we got stop.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah.
Oh no, 2 minutes. I've been told stop broadcasting in 2 minutes.
Okay, good. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to build small wins within the organization to show the opportunity and the potential, right, to get these people to come along. So we can look at it from an opportunity standpoint, because you're always going to have people who don't want to change, and you got to show them, or you got to create a sense of, a sense of urgency associated with what's the opportunity by moving. If we move collectively, where's the opportunity at? And I think that that's a good way to also address it and then how do we build those small momentum builders, or those quick wins with people who are already interested in wanting to change, right? So early adoption starts with people who you don't want to fight. You want to find the people who are already on your side and build that momentum with them. And then those other people by social pressure will eventually need to come along, or they'll have to make a decision about what it is that they want to do, right? But you got to get people on board and get moving. Like Imran said, try something and see who comes along with you, and continue to build that momentum.
That's it from our side. Quick thank you from my side. Thank you for listening. If you've got questions, let us know.
Yeah, please. Thank you, everybody.
Going to stop broadcasting. I'll see you later and speak to you later, Sean. Take care.
Ciao.
I think you're still there, Sean, aren't you? You're still there. Yeah, it's true. Stop. I've stopped to stop it.